So was Minion good there? I would say yes. Oh, here we have a Gear Shepherd. Got a little bit of synergy going.
Yeah, and this is game 3 of the match for C League playing Earl versus Personman. Do you like opening Gear Shepherd?
Well, even though I want to play something that's Gear Shepherd oriented, I'm not sure I'm opening that. It's a good question. I kind of like Gear and then Bargain Spices.
Yeah, Gear money is strong. Spices money is strong. Is Gear Spices money strong, like very strong together?
I mean, it's a fast money strategy, but I definitely want to be playing with Shepherd as my main draw here.
Yeah, so Personman with the unfortunate 2-5, which I assume will be open Spices.
You can do Spices Gear here, and it's fine.
Well, they have it the other way, unfortunately.
Oh, they have a 2-5. Yeah, that is not great.
We'll see. I think Spices is fine, and you'll be able to make sure you buy 2 nice things next shuffle. And the Spices is a good card to have in the deck. Yeah, and I assume this will be another Gear for Personman and a Shepherd on their next buy. Do you play? Corey doesn't seem that useful here. You're not aiming to buy a bunch of action cards every turn.
Yeah, you don't want to load up on actions. I mean, you do want a couple Gears and a couple Sheps, but they're not that expensive in the first place.
Yeah, and then you probably don't need Horse Traders because of...
Yeah, Spices just fills that role so much nicer.
Yeah. So Earl got their Shepherd. Was able to set aside some green cards, which hopefully will pay off. And Personman has 5 or 7, up to 7 with 2 buys. They have the gear already. I kind of just want a Shepherd now. Are they going to get Shepherd second gear?
Obviously, it's a lot better with a village, but this Gear Shepherd is like the cheap version of Church Crossroads. You can, in theory, have a deck where you have 2 Gears and some Sheps. You play the Sheps to draw up a bunch of stuff, get your deck in your hand, and play a Gear and set aside a Shepherd and a green card every turn.
Yeah, I mean, you have Farming Village here too, so you could potentially be playing 2 Gears or...
Oh, you do have a village. Wow, I just somehow totally missed that. So yes, in that case, you can play with more Gears, which is great because, it gives you a lot more flexibility in finding the cards you need.
There's also training, which is interesting. Shepherd being the card, I guess, that you'd end up training. Because there's Spices for the it's a plus buy and a treasure, not an action card. You can play a couple of Spices, certainly.
I don't think I train anything here.
That was interesting, bargaining for a Spices over the second Shepherd. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah, there's some debate in the chat. I think... I don't know. I think Gear Spices money might be really fast. I'm sure it's really fast. The question is if you can get a Shepherd, multiple Gear, Farming Village, some Spices that outpaces that, is able to double province. It's not super clear to me. But I mean, these decks are moving along pretty nicely, and gear is a really nice card in decks like this because you can set aside your actions and green cards. Sometimes in an engine, you in the middle game don't have good stuff to set aside with gear. Like your deck is in a good shape and you haven't started greening yet, so your gear is just like +2 cards. But with
Fancy mode.
with Shepherd, you're always happy to set aside green cards.
I agree with J Nails. I think gear spices with Shep will almost always beat it without Shep.
Yeah, so for Personman here, I think I really want to get Shepherd and maybe a farming village. Maybe they with only 2 gears, you don't really need a farming village, but I think I'm willing to play with more gears here. Once you get big draw going, you can get changeling stuff and play. There's all sorts of fun stuff that you can do. And we're seeing how with 2 shepherds and gear, Earl's already drawing deck.
Yep. So he wants to add in another shepherd or 2, probably, so that he can set. You probably only need another 1, but you want to be able to set it aside with gear. And then maybe some villages, some more gears, some spices. You can kind of just add them in here.
Yeah, I think definitely you want another spices at some point because you want to be buying. You want to be able to buy 3 things like shepherd, farming village, gear.
Yeah, Chef Spices looks good to me.
Personman's hopefully going to be able to draw, but looks like they're gear bottom decked with 1 estate. So not the greatest draw for them this turn. Seeing Earl doesn't look like they have a great turn coming up either. So Personman's done the training. We'll see if Earl follows suit. There's a lot of things you want. Like I want more gears, more farming villages, more spices. But at some point you have to focus on winning the game. So this is a interesting one in terms of when you know how much time do you spend building, doing things like training, and how much when you start converting to buying provinces.
Oh no, Earl's hand. This is why we use gear to set aside some green.
If only he'd put training on those shepherds, then he would have. Well, Earl didn't have a gear coming in last turn, or he had 2 estates coming in last turn and no shepherd, so they weren't able to play a gear. But if he had training on those shepherds, he could get up to 5. Get up to 5 here, but instead it's just a task turn. I thought they had bought a farming village, but maybe that was at the top of that shuffle. So Personman here is able to set aside 2. This to me looks like farming village, gear, shepherd again. At some point, though, you can, if you think your deck is reliable enough, start buying estates. That doesn't seem good. Yeah, I mean, I think they need to be building more, have built more to make the estate stuff work.
I mean, when you have a lot of shepherds in your deck, that deck is fine adding green as long as you have some way to set up, and gear is exactly that way.
Yeah, what's up with villages is I basically want one village so I can add more gears to my deck and play 2 gears in a turn. Is why I want a village in my deck. I don't want like 4 villages and do village gear smithy village, but I feel like 1 village does not have such a high cost for the value for the turns when you draw both gears together. This is quite a sad draw for Personman too. I don't know if you set aside gear shepherd or exactly what you set aside
Shep and a green card.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Do they just continue greening, or look to build a little bit more, like another shepherd and a spices or something? Yeah. The greening line would just be province estate, and then you're hoping to set aside a shepherd with gear every turn and just draw a ton of cards that way. That makes sense to me. Personman has got a pretty big VP lead here.
Yeah, and his deck is not going to choke on green either. So you can green a lot more aggressively in these kinds of decks.
Yeah. So they did get one more shepherd, two more shepherds, and an estate. That feels a little bit slow, but we'll see. So this is why, for people wondering why I wanted a village, I just wanted the one village just in case you have a turn like this. It's really nice to have those extra villages. Sets aside shepherd and gear. That makes sense. Now they can set aside 2 estates, so they're going to have a pretty guaranteed to have a nice turn next turn. And they've got a similar quandary. Do they want to go province, duchy, estate, province, estate, estate? I think we've passed the point where we're doing training. But I think they could probably support one more shepherd as well because they've only got 3
spices.
I'm not sure if that's I'm behind, so I want to add some more plus buy and try to like get 5 estates in a turn kind of thing, or what. Yeah, since Personman has the training on the shepherd, that turn was not nearly as sad as it could have been. Although I think it still ends up being a little bit sad that they drew all their shepherds together. They should have a whole bunch of green cards down here coming up. This I'm not sure if you actually want to set these aside yet. I think you might consider as Earl not setting anything aside and trying to draw through. They did set some aside. I would consider here going province triple estate and getting all of the pasture points. I don't understand why they keep getting spices. But Personman seems pretty solidly ahead in the VP at this point. Now I think Personman will play the gear so they can set aside Shepherd Estate and then count their money.
Yeah, in response to what J-Dales is saying, I'm not sure. I would think the no fishing village deck, farming village deck, plays 2 gears and uses 1 at the end of every turn to set aside a shepherd and an estate. Or a shepherd and a prov. I mean, shep and a green card.
Yeah, I definitely want 2 estates here. Those are worth double normal estates, and lowering the piles is good for you, given that how far you are ahead. Earl's going to have to gain a couple of duchies now to catch up, which seems quite difficult to do before you get more provinces. Are these top 3 cards all bad? Earl may have had to, unfortunately, trigger a bad shuffle there. I think they're going to be low on shepherds at this point of the game, with only 3. But I expect Personman to be able to draw deck here pretty easily with the amount of green cards and shepherds they have.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if this wasn't the last turn.
Yeah, and we knew Earl had three estates on top of the deck. So, or I believe it was 3 estates on top of the deck from the previous turn. So we knew that was going to happen. But again, so you've got 2 cards to find either farming village or one of your one farming village or 3 shepherds. But again, as KT, I think you said you expect this to be the last turn of the game. I'm not
I
sure
did.
what Personman is thinking about. Again, you just shepherd 3 here, and you should draw 4 or 5 green cards, which you can, and you have another shepherd down there. And if you play, so this is what, 12 money, 2 more shepherds is 14 money. So if they have 1 more spices down there, which I don't think they have any more spices, but if they have 2 more coppers down there, which they should, because they should have 7 coppers, that should be a win. There is 1 more shepherd down there.
Yes, there is another one.
They only need to find 1 more shepherd.
I'm not sure what they're thinking of here.
They paused a second ago too. So yeah, I'm not sure if they're just trying to pre-count or if they're trying to work out. They could play a gear here, set aside a shepherd and estate, and then buy. Well, they can't even buy province duchy right now. You really want to be able to buy province duchy here if you can't double province, and then basically the game's over. I haven't done the calculation what 50% VP is on a pasture board, but I assume it's normal 50% VP is 86, so it's
that plus 5.
Plus,
right? Because there's 10 estate, each one's worth an extra point. So plus 5.
Yeah, I think there's 7 estates per person, something like that. Yeah, so they're not quite 10. There, but okay. So it looks like they played the shepherd and they played the gear. They set aside the shepherd and estate. Yeah, province duchy here is more than fine enough. I think they didn't want to trigger. They wanted to make sure they didn't trigger a bad shuffle. But I think they could have potentially played that shepherd and had 16 and just double provinced.
Yep.
I assume Earl is thinking, what does Earl have? Does Earl have a gear coming into play? With 4
Yeah, but it's just got green in it.
4 green cards.
Yeah, Earl's pretty dead. I'm
surprised Earl has not resigned yet.
Same.
It seems like a pretty clear spot. Hoping maybe that Personman duds on their next turn.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if Earl gets 1 duchy, they're guaranteed a tie, and if they get 1 province, they're guaranteed the win, obviously. And that's it.
Yeah, it's a win.
So nicely done by Personman. I'm not quite sure what the difference is. They had the 5-2 and opened with spices.
They also just had more shepherds.
They got more shepherds. They didn't stop for the farming villages and extra gears.
Right.
I think
3 gears, 5 shepherds.
Yeah, I think I wanted more shepherds as Earl and more potentially gears, but maybe Personman didn't need them. So well played by Personman. And I will see you in game 4.
Yep.